Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Nerds in the North podcast, episode number 48. And today we have literally no idea what we're doing. We're going to be talking about, a little bit of Stranger Things and Ms. Marvel, perhaps, but largely we're probably just going to be kind of shooting the shit today. So, welcome to today's episode. I am host number one, Matt, and joining me, as always, is host number two.
This is Nick.
And I guess we'll kind of just start at the top. I know the big topic of conversation for today was probably going to be Stranger Things. Whole season is out now. The beginning of July is when the last two episodes came out. I don't know. I can't really remember the last time an episode of a show came out that was 2 hours long that I was excited for, at least. But it was tremendously exciting to watch. Nick, what were your thoughts on how the season ended?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. When I first saw that 2.5 hour runtime, I was kind of little like, oh man, that's so long. I don't know if I watched it. I didn't watch the whole thing straight through, honestly. I did pause halfway through. I think came back a day later.
Mm-hmm.
I thought especially the last episode was really strong. Just the whole thing. I really enjoyed a lot. I like the mythology. I like the characters. I think they did really well with a lot of the arcs. They kind of came full circle. It's also fairly brutal during some scenes. With what happens with Max. Man, what happened with that one basketball player that was following them around? He just kind of melts into the floor. Man,
I believe it was dark. Jason, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just remember I'm like, holy moly, that's pretty dark. It straight up melts, you know?
Right.
Pretty gross. Vecna was pretty. I like that it was kind of Vecna all along. I like that they sort of are tying a bow on things. I like when shows do that.
Yeah. No, I like when I will say that from what I understand of things, like Vecna generally as because Vecna being from like the D&D universe, like Vecna is generally a general, like he is a representative of something bigger than himself. Which I guess he kind of is, if you really wanted to like stretch how the show is viewing him. He is kind of the amalgamation, the representative of the Upside Down and all the creatures therein. But they're definitely painting him as like the main bad guy, which I think is fine, all things considered. But I think I know that my initial reaction to that wasn't necessarily enormously positive. I was like, oh, so there's like, no, he's just the bad guy. Okay. Like, so I guess he might have, a fresh coat of paint on him when we see him next, bigger, badder, stronger. But we also, I have no idea about like what the timeline is going to be for the next season. So it's probably going to be a hot minute.
It also could be that maybe he is being used by the Mind Flayer without his knowledge. I could see being a thing. So
yeah, I would be very into that kind of arc in that he's being maybe not necessarily forced, but like kind of more steered,
manipulated.
Yeah, manipulated in a way that the Mind Flayer has notions for him that he's not aware of. I think I would enjoy that more than Vecna being kind of the final boss, so to speak.
I would agree with that. I think that makes sense.
But really, like outside of that, I really enjoyed. I kind of came to this conclusion after the fact. Like it's easy to make calls on things after you've seen all of it already. But Eddie, for example, Eddie's fate, his fate was sealed as soon as he got accused for the murders that Vecna was responsible for, right? Because every single season of the show has had the same setup in that something terrible starts happening in the real world. Something from the Upside Down is responsible for it. And then the conclusion of the season is that the Upside Down ultimately fails, like not without their wounds having been dealt, but like they fail. The real world suffers through it, but they remain intact for the most part. But the Upside Down is never ultimately, brought to justice, or there's like no like conclusion that deals with it properly. The real world just goes, oh, well, those kids died anyway, and then they move on. And that was the case with this season. It's like as soon as Eddie got accused of those murders, like we should have all known that he was going to die at the end of this season. There was no way for him to come back, because what are they going to do? It's like, okay, it's going to sound crazy, but this otherworldly being called Vecna is actually the one that killed those kids. Totally not Eddie, who just happened to be there for a lot of them dying. And so, like, it's really heartbreaking because I know Eddie kind of initially seemed like a character you wouldn't necessarily like or relate to, but he did kind of turn into a big softie there at the end. And I love his taste in metal. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that scene with him just shredding on top of that like rock with all that was pretty badass, not gonna lie. I was into it. Kind of reminded me of like in Mad Max with the guy on top of the
right.
Yeah.
Witness me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw a video that inserted a like metal cover of like Ocarina of Time music instead of what was it? Master of Puppets? Is that what the song was?
Like the one
from Master of Puppets, because it's Metallica's Master of Puppets.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
But yeah, rather than that, they put in like a metal cover of some Ocarina of Time music. I was just like, oh yes, this is good. I love this.
Yeah.
Now I want to see a cover where they put in like the Doom soundtrack instead.
Yeah. No, man, just the whole episode I thought was really, well, not necessarily fun, but just really emotionally cathartic and moving. The stuff with Elle and Will, I thought was good. When he's like telling her essentially why he was feeling the way he was, like he did love her. I like that part. And the stuff with Max, like for whatever reason, I've kind of, after the whole Kate Bush running up that hill scene, I've become quite attached to her as a character. So I was actually almost dreading watching this, knowing that she might get hurt, and then seeing her limbs break, and that's kind of rough, honestly.
Yeah, it's a lot of really brutal scenes, because I mean, really, I don't think we've ever had a season that really seriously injured the main cast that much. And Max, like, just was this close to death at that juncture, right? Well, I mean, she was dead. I mean, like, the only reason she's alive is because Elle did something to save her. And it was so brutal. And Max is not a character who's had as wholesome as an upbringing as a lot of the other characters, she's had it rough this whole time, and even in this season where things were markedly dark, she still was a character who was dealing with the darkness really consistently, having to be strong in these moments where, like, her like maybe, I guess that may be something I would point out as kind of an oddity, is where was her mom in all this? Like, I know her mom's a deadbeat, but the whole fucking town was exploding. Like, where the hell was she, screaming out her daughter's name, trying to find her in all of this madness?
Yeah, I don't know. What I guess I would justify it if we wanted to really get into it. I don't think at that point, when they were in Vecna's old house, that the town was quite exploding yet. I mean, there was definitely like a serial killer on the loose, they assumed, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, where were all their parents really? I guess you could make that
Yeah,
That
actually, I mean that does actually remind me of something of a bit of a gripe of mine with the finale was that we had 2.5 hours of time to deal with, and I do ultimately feel like it didn't really feel like a lot of time was wasted on any particular like character arc or moment throughout the episode. But where the hell was the chief of Hawkins during all of this? Like the new chief, the police in general, and where the hell were their parents? Like, were they all just chilling in their houses again? Well, I guess our kids are missing, but the world's ending, so I guess we'll wait. Like,
well, I mean, in all fairness, like, are you talking about like when the like Upside Down opened up and they had that earthquake? Is that what you're referring to?
I mean, even if you're thinking previous or like before that, um, like we have because the moment where all the kids run away from it was oh shoot, why am I forgetting his name? Wolfhard's character. Um,
Mike.
yeah, Mike. They're all in Mike's house at that moment, right? Like,
I think so, man, but I don't remember.
but like, but like regardless whoever's house they're in, they're all in that house. They all escape, and the cops chased after them. Or like make an attempt at least. The parents are calling after them, and that's really the last you see of the parents for the rest of the show. And that was an episode. That was the third to last episode. Yeah, like in that moment, or was that second to last?
I don't remember. Yeah, I
But
mean, I watched that those first seven like a month ago, so
yeah,
I'll
right.
admit that like I don't remember them quite as well.
but
The last two.
but like for them to run off like that, and then for the parents and the police to seemingly do nothing for the rest of the season does seem a little weird to me. Like I was kind of hoping for all the moms in particular to like come together and maybe do something for the end of the season.
Yeah, I was
Because
well. That was kind of something that was in the back of my mind for a little bit with like Winona Ryder's character. I can't remember what her name is right now.
Joyce.
Joyce. I mean, if you really look at what she did, like with a critical lens, it was very irresponsible to the kids that she's raising. Like
Right.
she would like risk everything to fly into the Soviet Union to save her
One person. Like,
former lover or whatever. Like just very irresponsible. Um, Even like when she realized, what was happening, you think I don't think she mentioned her children once during that whole thing. You think like, well,
never.
I shouldn't be here. I should probably get back to my like two sons and my adoptive daughter.
Right. Yeah, no. That definitely crossed my mind too. She just kind of, I mean, she lied to them outright about where she was going. And I mean, they ended up putting themselves, well, I guess they didn't like even put themselves in danger. The danger came to them and they reacted to it, and fled the house, um, when the government decided to show up.
Yeah, that's amazing
Which,
too. You think those kids would have like major PTSD? I mean,
right.
that scene in particular, that was like a full-on action movie, like people getting shot all around them, like pretty graphically.
I know they deal with a tremendous number of adults dying around them really well, all things considered. I mean, like a federal agent like dies in like Mike and his brother's arms, or wait, no, Mike and Will's arms, and they're just like, well, oh well, anyway, we got to find Elle. Like,
Yeah.
I will say though, the actor who is Will in the show, which his name I'm going to look up because Will Byers.
Reminds me of kind of Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, just like the way he smiles.
Strange Things actor. Noah Schnapp. tremendous acting chops. I am really looking forward to seeing him in things even outside of Stranger Things, because he was so good in this. Like, he, because I mean, the elephant in the room, right, is that Will's gay. Like, that's pretty like written on the walls, right? Will is talking about Mike and Elle's relationship in terms of, Elle's been having such a hard time adjusting. She doesn't really know who she is. And that moment when they're talking in the van and he just turns and is just crying into his arm, like just turned away, sobbing. He's consoling his friend about how he's feeling, but he's telling his own story in that moment. Christ, the show is so good. Like, just that whole moment, like his portrayal of Will as a character has just been so tremendous. I have loved him. He was, and he sprouted like out of all of them. I feel like he is like, he's just a really like good looking young man. Like, it just is really impressive, and just I am really looking forward to seeing more of him in the future. Like, child actors are something that I struggle with in terms of cinema. I generally don't like them very much, but you end up with exceptions. Stranger Things has had, all of them are exceptions to the rule in terms of child actors. I think they've all been done really good work with the characters that they've been assigned to,
Yeah, they're all great. Great little actors. Oh man. I was watching something with like a lot of them they're under 20 years old, I think.
Mhm.
Dustin, the actor that plays Dustin. Oh man, it's just almost sickening to me that these kids are born after the year 2000.
I know, it's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
It reminds you of how tremendously old we are by comparison.
Some of the actors in Euphoria, though they play high schoolers, are actually my age. At least I can live with that knowledge.
See, that's always been a thing that's bothered me. I have people that actively avoid this topic with me because they know that I will get on my soapbox about it. But fucking Tobey Maguire in the first Spider-Man movie he was in. Tobey Maguire as a high school student, get the fuck out of here. All the people in that movie are like in their 30s, and they're like, geez, Parker, get out of my way. I gotta get chemistry. Like, fuck off. That's so ridiculous.
I wonder how old he actually was in that film. I'm curious. He's like 40 in that film. He actually, he definitely looked his age, I think, in the new Spider-Man film. Spoilers.
Mhm.
Tobey Maguire's in Far From Home. Or No Way Home, my bad.
If you don't know that by now, then what are you? Who are you?
Yeah. What planet are you living on?
Yeah, right.
So right, he was born in 1975. The first one came out in 2002. So
he's in his 30s.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of it, he was in his 30s. But I think when the first one came out, so that would mean he's probably like 25, 26.
Yeah.
It's a little absurd. Absurd.
Right. Well, especially like, I swear we're going to be on the soapbox for only a short amount of time. Flash Thompson in those movies is this hulk of a human by comparison to like everyone else. And he's just like the high school bully. It's like, this dude works out every day of his fucking life. Look at him. And he's just like walking around the school like, yeah, I'm just a high school bully. Get the fuck out of here.
Bodybuilder.
He's huge.
Yeah.
He's got some tremendously great lines in that movie. Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight me neither. Like,
classic.
But anyway, Tobey Maguire aside, it's something that I really liked about Stranger Things, is that like all the characters have been very believably the age that they are. And I know that's going to get more challenging as time goes on.
Well, next season's the last, apparently.
Yeah, next season's the last, and they're supposed to be seniors. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, because I think they're juniors this season.
I feel
And-
like with the next season, at least with how this one ended, I don't know if there's going to be much time for them to. Well, they can't go back to school. Their school is literally destroyed. So,
Right. Yeah. See, I'm really curious about how they're going to approach it. I'm sure if I like dug in and found out, what exactly was going on at the beginning of the season, but it definitely, like the way the season has been or how the show's been progressing, it's kind of been like, it's almost like Harry Potter-esque, and like each year is like another year for them in terms of their schooling. So I am curious to see how they handle the next season, because it definitely is the most post-apocalyptic situation they could be in, possibly.
I was trying to see, like, if there's anything on Wikipedia about season 5 when it's going to get filmed. I don't know, because I mean, I would like to see. I want to see what happens. I'm curious. I want to see how it all ends. Who's going to live? Who's going to die? Could be anyone.
Who tells your story? Sorry, Hamilton reference.
Oh, I thought you were going to quote Game of Thrones. Like,
who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, like the fact that I have to wait such a long time for the next season of the show to come out. Who knows, man? Netflix might dissolve in this time, and fucking Amazon picks up the torch and finishes out this show.
I don't know. I doubt Netflix. That'll happen. Who knows? I don't know.
I think Netflix is definitely struggling in comparison to some of the other platforms in terms of what they're shipping out. I don't think it's near as dire as some people might make it out to be. I joke about it, but only because the online conversation seems to be one that would point to Netflix, dissolving in like the next 6 months.
Really, people think that?
Yeah, there are definitely people out there that are assuming Netflix is just going to disappear overnight. And
wow, I think they're more. I don't even know. I feel like they might get bought out by like a larger media company, but they have some major disadvantages against some of the other companies that are now creating streaming services. I think, just that
like
they don't have like a back catalog. They don't have alternative streams of income. Their whole income is through streaming. So
right, HBO has streaming stuff, but they also still have like their entire backbone of like satellite content that's been exclusive to those platforms for forever.
right.
Amazon Prime, I don't even need to point out why that's a fucking powerhouse of a streaming platform. And that really seems like kind of the two big dogs. I mean, I guess like Hulu.
Well, Disney is Hulu now, and Disney Plus, obviously. They obviously have parks. They have films coming out. It's
right. So
cruise lines, whole cities.
Despite the fact that Netflix has been like a big dog in the race for years now, Netflix as a platform is now kind of the underdog by comparison.
Yeah, I would agree. Plus, they keep raising their prices. But...
Yeah, well, and I don't think that their presence in social media has been very good. They definitely are eating their words in a number of places.
Yeah,
poking fun at password share. Excuse me. Regarding people sharing their Netflix passwords, and now they're wanting to crunch down on that by means of charging people for sharing their accounts, making it harder to do that. And meanwhile, Disney Plus is over here. I haven't paid for a fucking month of Disney Plus. I've been on my brother-in-law's Disney Plus since day one, and it's because for them, they don't really need to worry about it. They're Disney. What do they care? It's like, for every 10 people that aren't paying for it, they're still cranking out a ton of content because they have
Yeah.
other sources of revenue coming in.
Well, I'm sure they care. I'm sure it's not that they don't care that they're not getting money, but
Yeah, that's fair, but it's not an alarming thing to them at this juncture. Maybe Disney will be the bad guy at some point, cracking down on that. But
well, now that Netflix has gotten so much bad publicity from it, none of them are going to want to crack down on it. But I'm personally okay with advertisements, like an advertisement tier. Like it wouldn't bug me if Netflix did that too. I don't mind advertisements necessarily, but it's not too over the top. Like I don't want to see advertisements when I just open up the app. I don't want to see that, or like in just the UI or something.
Right.
As you're scrolling.
Yeah, I know that like the advertisements that I had been exposed to at some point was through Netflix was always just for their own content. It was never, they're trying to serve you things that they, by whatever algorithm they think that you might like or whatever, based on your viewing preferences. That type of thing I don't mind at all. It's like, oh, you just finished watching Stranger Things. You might enjoy, whatever program they have available. And I don't know, like that type of advertising doesn't necessarily work on me ever, really. But I mean, you never know. Sometimes like a diamond in the rough might present itself to you and you might get a chance to enjoy something you might not have thought of. But
yeah, in general, when I see that, I always think that I'm not going to like what they suggested.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Netflix has put out some real turds in terms of some of their content. The one that comes to my mind is I think it was called The Farm. Is that what it was called? It had like Sam Elliott and like Ashton Kutcher. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
It was Farm. Yeah, it was
The Ranch.
The Ranch. Yes. No, you're totally right. Yeah, it was The Ranch.
Yeah, I know nothing about this one. Is it a movie or no? It's a show.
It is a show. Yeah, Ashton Kutcher. That's right. Yeah, because that's the two names I remembered was Kutcher and Sam Elliott.
Oh, and Danny Masterson was in it too.
Yes, and I think that's a huge reason why it went off the rails was because Danny Masterson ran into a lot of I mean, justifiably so. He got called out for some real serious.
Yeah.
When the show I feel like kind of like was hitting its stride maybe, but that's one that just comes across my mind because I had people at the time in my life who were actively watching that show and I never was interested in that type of content, just laugh track, comedy, sitcom fodder.
We're for 4 seasons of 20 episodes each, so it's 80 episodes of this show I've never even heard of. Wow.
It was a big deal at the time. Like,
yeah, I've never heard of this.
And this, like The Ranch, honestly, is an example of a show that wasn't necessarily a turd of a show. Like it was something that had a lot of, or represented a lot of success for Netflix on their platform, but it kind of Ezra Millered itself because of Danny Masterson.
10 minutes left. Did we want to briefly talk about Ms. Marvel?
Yeah, sure. No. Yeah. Ms. Marvel. I mean, I've been enjoying that show a lot. It's been a very interesting window as a super white dude who grew up in Montana, like getting this kind of exposure to a culture that I'm not very familiar with at all. Very limited exposure. Getting to see a lot of, like just hearing about a lot of the historical events, that are really wildly important to the culture of India and people who lived in the region at the time has been really interesting. And it, I was kind of wondering like what was going to happen in this most recent episode, where like regarding like we saw, Ms. Marvel get like more or less transported into the past, or at least it visually it seemed that way, and getting to see like how her grandmother, great grandmother, right, interacted. Yeah, great grandmother interacted with the world at the time was really interesting. Like, and finally getting some of that backstory. I definitely had some theories in my head at the time of like, well, I wonder if this is how this is going to play out. And, sure enough, like, her being in the past was definitely very significant to the story.
Yeah.
I know that the show hasn't necessarily been resonating with you as much as it has with me, and that's fine. But
I think I'm just starting to get kind of tired of all these Marvel Disney Plus shows. And I actually, for both Moon Knight and this one, they both kind of, as soon as they left where the show began, like Moon Knight started in the UK, Miss Marvel started in New Jersey. When they left their regions, like when I kind of feel like the show went off the rails a little bit when both of them, when they went to the different areas.
Yeah.
But I just think the show's too short. Like if they had given us more time to get to know the characters in Miss Marvel or any of these shows and just kind of lived with them for a little while, like I wanted to see more of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, just like enjoying or living in her high school. But we kind of got this crazy accelerated arc again where we find out that the villain is actually the person that said that they were going to be your friend. It like happens every Marvel show. That almost always happens. Right. And I wasn't surprised with that. And then we go to a different environment entirely. And I just feel like it's not working for me with these. I want them to be longer. And to me, it's kind of finally starting to come across as like these aren't really TV shows, because they're just kind of like, these are just setups for movies and characters. But I don't know if it's not really working for me as either as a TV show or as like a mini movie, honestly. Sure. So I'm kind of getting frustrated with Disney in that really style. Actually, I think Star Wars has been fine. I think Mandalorian feels like a legit show. Actually, right. I think Obi-Wan, for all of its flaws, did feel like a complete story that I didn't really feel like it was necessarily building up to anything. They could if they wanted to, but
sure.
I didn't really. I think Star Wars it has faults, but I don't think it has the same faults as the Marvel shows. Like it's kind of, I'm quickly losing interest in Marvel, especially their TV shows. Like I'm just not that excited about them anymore, which is kind of sad. Like I used to get really excited about these, but most of them are really mediocre. If they were really good, I would be more excited, but they're just kind of middling.
I mean, I don't know what episode it is, but like in our lineage of episodes, I am 100% on the record for saying that like these shows are just basically teasers for movies. And I stand by that point to this day. Like that's kind of what these have always been. And I think as time goes on, that's been becoming more apparent.
I mean, look at like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
They released so much content and it was great. Like and the CGI and Stranger Things was movie level quality as far as I'm concerned.
For sure.
You look at like the Marvel shows or even Obi-Wan, I think the CGI there looks really shoddy, not very good. Does not look movie quality. But Stranger Things, like I think that looked great. You could tell like they put a lot of time and thought and frankly money into that. Disney just seems kind of like, oh, I'm gonna shit out this like thing and like people are gonna eat it up no matter what we shit out.
Right. No, I would agree with that. I mean, like I think that the CG quality has been much better in the Netflix productions. At least like if we're talking about Stranger Things for sure. Like the Demogorgons, like in the Russian prison, for example, like have really come across as they don't feel wildly out of place. They seem real, right? Like obviously we know they're not real. It's a show, whatever, blah blah blah. But suspense of disbelief.
Yeah.
In the moment, they feel really tremendously dangerous and like they're there.
It's kind of just popped into my head for season 4 as well for Stranger Things.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the times as the show goes on, it becomes like each season kind of feels less and less necessary. But this season of Stranger Things, I felt very necessary, and it felt like the show was actually building up to season 4 and in a way I wasn't expecting, which I thought made things work really well for me. So I really like Stranger Things a lot this season. I think they really season 3 I was kind of like losing a little interest, to be honest with you, but season 4, like I'm right back up there. I really like it. So
yeah, because season 3 of Stranger Things is when they did the introduction of like the other kids, right? Like the street ruffian.
I think that was actually season 2, I want to say.
That's season 2,
but it like went really badly. It was really stupid. I think they were trying to make a spin-off of the show or something, and so they didn't go with that, thankfully.
Yeah, because like I'm interested in those characters, but only in how they like feed into the original story, right?
Right. I mean, that was a cool idea. I just don't think it was really that well executed.
Yeah, but I will say though that like I think every season of Stranger Things has felt like it's been building up to a greater whole over time to create a large overarching story that spans all the seasons, right? Whereas I think a lot of the Marvel TV shows have kind of felt like very concentrated nuggets of storytelling that are kind of just there as teasers that are meant to build into like larger feature films.
It's weird, like for Moon Knight especially, I felt like the first episode of that show was excellent. Like it was just like really well made. But then it started like jumping and doing all these like it was trying to do like a billion different things.
Right.
And I think if it just had like focused on the one thing, like if they, we want to make this like a action adventure where they goes off to Egypt and is like an explorer, like kind of like the Mummy or something. Or if you want to make it like kind of the cerebral, like is he good? Is he crazy? He has different personalities, kind of like a, I don't know, like a something that like what's his name would do. Drawing a blank. You know, kind of what the fuck? Chris Nolan. There we go.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like something. But they kind of, and then at the end it was this time kind of turned into like your typical Marvel thing. But Miss Marvel I think was actually really nailing the tone for the first few episodes, but now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not really feeling it. And like the whole flashback thing, I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before. Not really that compelling to me. Sorry. But,
no, I don't think. Yeah. I definitely will say that we have like under a minute at this point. Yeah. But I will say that I'd like to continue this subject. However, we are running out of time. So
we're out of time.
Yeah.
Out of time.
I will say that thank you all for joining us today for this episode of the Nerds of the North podcast. We are being cut off today because, well, you know, the platform of choice that we use for this, unfortunately, leaves us in a place with a very limited timeline. So thank you for joining us today. We will join you next week, episode 49 of the Nerds of the North podcast. Thank you for joining, and we will talk to you guys next week.